Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I keep saying I'm not buying any more orchids, but this one was sort of free because when I retired I had some retirement money and I put some of that into the premium bonds scheme, which is just somewhere to plonk your money, and then there's a computerized draw every month and prizes up to £1,000,000. You know, you never know your luck. But anyway, I got one of the lowest prize is 25 quid, which I got one not long ago. So effectively this is like a free orchid. This is Dendrobium habicki, and it's been on my list for a while because I really like the blooms, but every time I see these for sale they really are rubbish tatty flipping plants. But my good friend Peter White has back doors to places just basically because of who he is and, you know, his status within the orchid world. And he managed to find some in Germany on his last trip. I forget the supplier, it's gone out of my head. But the guy had 25 good ones. This is not one of the best ones. I can't believe I missed these, but he was at our Bournemouth show and he had 25 of these in a tray, and some of the ones of this sort of quality were also in bloom. And I must have walked straight past them. I got distracted by that Restrepia. And anyway, for whatever reason, I missed them. They were sat there in front of me, and I missed them. And do you know why? Because that does not look like a habicki. Oh, that's a mouthful. More coffee. It is early in the day. And that's probably why I walked past them. I probably thought they were some other dendrobium, because all the ones I've seen have been squat little tatty looking things. And this is a stunner. He did have one in bloom, but I bypassed that one because this was the better plant. It was as simple as that. I've gone for the plant. You know, there's no way this isn't going to bloom. Massive growth on it. I don't think I've ever seen one of these with such a large growth. It's an absolute beauty. And there's another one pushing on here. That's a newish growth that's heading towards maturity. There's another one here, and round the back here somewhere. I stuck it in a clay pot because it won't stand up. There's another new one here. Plenty of new root growth. It's a quality plant. And I've done a bit of work on this. This is it's effectively a primary hybrid, and it's Bracteosum crossed with Laavifolium. Memory, come on. Definitely need more coffee. And there's a little bit of a conflict between those they both come from the sort of New Guinea area, but they're not Latoria types. You know, there's plenty of other dendrobiums that come from that area. They're not all Latorias just because they come from New Guinea. But that and the surrounding areas. The Bracteosum is a warm grower. It can grow right down to the coast. Yeah, often found in mangroves and, you know, tropical forests. So this is not a high light type orchid. Continuously warm, and as such a continuous grower. The other one, however, is a bit different. The Laavifolium likes to be a bit drier in the winter. Now, not dry winter rest type thing, just a bit drier in the winter, because the areas this one comes from are more elevated. It comes from a bit higher up, so it's not such a warm grower, and it would get less rains in the winter, so it makes sense that it becomes a little bit drier in the winter, but not dry. The combination of those two means that, personally, as far as I'm concerned, that's just going to get treated exactly the same as I treat my Latorias. I'm going to treat it as a continuous grower and just make sure it isn't soggy in the cooler temperatures, which it isn't going to like. You know, half of that plant basically is a warm growing plant. But then my Latorias have got to put up with the winter, you know, so that's where we go. And I also managed to get a couple of these, I remembered this time. These are the Sharpie pens, and they are incredibly fine point. Permanent markers, black, just what I wanted. So I can now get the rest of my tags done. So that's what I bought. I had a good time at the show. Very social event. The Wessex show is far less formal than the Bournemouth one. You know, it's and their autumn show's not really a competitive show as such. I mean, there's a best hybrid and a best species and a best in show. And I did make a comment to one of the committee members that by definition, if it's a best species or a best hybrid, by definition it's also best in show. Think about it. So really only 2 plants should be awarded, shouldn't they? You know. But anyway, that's the way they do it. And their display is a real sort of homely, friendly display. You know, lots of little pleasant signs hanging up with comments. It's a thoroughly enjoyable show, but for some reason there's usually a really good display put on by the Thames Valley Orchid Society, and that was missing. So it was like a hole, you know, where something should be. It just felt weird that section of the hall was just like empty. There's nothing there. But you know, the normal 3 traders that us 2 Orchid Societies share. Lawrence Hobbs, the man, wasn't there, but you know, somebody was there on his behalf. Arthur was there from Burnham's, having a lazy time and chatting to all his orchid buddies from, you know, from our area. And Peter White was there, you know, with his accessories, and he had some good plants there today at that time as well. So yeah, an enjoyable time, gatherings of growers, little huddles discussing ways of growing things and differences, and getting in on those conversations. There's just a wealth of information come out of some of those people. You know, some been growing 30, 40, 50 years, some of them, you know, so they may be set in their ways, some of them, but their ways are working. That's the important thing. All you have to do is weigh up where an individual grows their orchids, and is that anything like where I grow my orchids? And if it's not, then their advice might not be so relevant, because it's all environmentally based. Yeah. So anyway, good time was had by all. That is a stunning hibiki. I know it's a hybrid and you make up your own names for hybrids, but I often think that somebody ran out of ink when they were naming this plant, because traditionally when there's an I on the end of an orchid name, there's normally 2 of them. You know, to me it would sound better if it was hibiki I, but it isn't. It's only got 1 I on the end. Lots of I's, but only 1 on the end. Just quickly while I'm here, this Rhodostictum, one of those 2, it dropped one of its buds, but it's still got 2. Only had 1 last time, this time 2. Progress. 3 would have been better, but it's dumped 1. The Bulbophyllum Elizabeth and Buckleberry has thrown up a spike while I wasn't looking. Now, when I watered last time, all the Bulbophyllums were still wet, so they didn't get done. So I'll have to keep my eye on these, because they might not go the full length of time to the point where I next water my pots. It's just getting to that funny time of year where things missed the run. But they might not, you know, I don't want these drying out, obviously, but then I didn't want to water them because they'd have just got really soggy if I'd done that. So those sort of choices are coming along. It's just that time of year. But yeah, we got a spike on there. What else did I notice? Oh, these Cattleya buds are pushing on nicely up here. Those should be quite big. Oh, if you look at the video of the Wessex Orchid Society show, there's a Cattleya in there that I couldn't resist putting my hand next to. Well, that's my hand. I reckon that's a good 6 inches from top to bottom. Yeah, and I deliberately put that next to that Cattleya bloom. It is huge. You know, the bloom was larger than my hand. I've never seen a Cattleya bloom that size before. That's why I put my hand on the video, to just show how big that, I think there were a pair of blooms there. The only other thing I want to add into this one, because I want to keep this short, is that Vanda. Now that spike is the one I put the pegs on. So thanks Lynn from Down Under, it's done the job. It's arched the spike. And the spike is now probably not going to touch the roof like it did last time. Last time I had to lower the plant down well over a foot, which drops it out of the good light, but the spike went vertical. This time it's more horizontal. That's going to have a lot of blooms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, possibly 8, maybe even 9. That's going to be a stunner. And the big blue one up the back, that spike doesn't look like it will be as magnificent as the previous one. But to get it to bloom twice in 1 year is not bad going. The heritage of those large blues, they need pretty optimum conditions to bloom more than once, and the UK is not optimum conditions. You just don't get the light. But at the moment it looks like it's only going to have one bud. But from memory I think that as it sort of extends and the buds come out sideways, but we'll have to wait and see. That's about it. As I said, I want to keep this one short. I've still got to decide what to do with this bush, but I'm watching it. I'm just watching. Since I got it, which wasn't long ago, I have talked to a lot of people and nobody wants to attempt to do anything with that seed pod. And the main reason, there is no guarantee what pollinated the bloom. And without that knowledge, it won't have a name. It can only be deemed a cross, because there's no definitive ability. But I was just watching, I was thinking, oh look, flower spikes. And then I thought, hang on, these canes branch all over the place, so I'm watching what it does. You know, relatively new, full-grown growth here. Then it shoots out, pushes over and arches, and now it's starting to produce its branches. I don't believe those are spikes. I think that's its natural growth progression. It's quite interesting to watch this one. It is a strange one. It is strange and big. I'll accommodate this size by strapping and guiding, because I want this plant to stay upright so that it can stay potted, and then I want it to arch over. But at the moment I've got more bush on one side than I have on the other side, which is a bit barren. This is why I'm trying to force the latest pieces this way. So as they come up, I will guide these nice new growths down here. These are the latest growths down here, and I want to keep them pointing that way so that it fills out a bit more on that side. Otherwise it's quite lopsided at the moment. It's so lopsided it has to sit in 2 clay pots to even stand up. It just flops, falls over. So as does my new acquisition. That won't stand up on its own. I've had to stand that in a clay pot temporarily. Now, I've never seen a hibiki mounted, but that plant lends itself to be mounted, but it would need a lot of moss. Being a continuous grower, it shouldn't really have that fast wet-dry cycle that most of my dendrobiums get that are mounted, but it's going to be awkward to keep it in a pot because it's grown all of its new growths out one side and they're huge. So all the weight is over the edge of the pot. And the only way I can keep it in a pot is either put it in a very big one, not ideal, or use a little trick which I've used in the past, which is to use the right size pot effectively for the size of the root system and the size of the plant, and put a rock in the bottom of the pot before I add the media in, and then the sheer weight at the base of the pot should hold it upright. So I think I didn't really ought to mount that. It's not the right sort of dendrobium to work best mounted. It'll be better in a pot. So rock in the bottom, and if it still won't stand up, it'll just have to stand in a clay pot, and if necessary with a rock in the bottom of that as well. You know, just use a heavy rock, stabilize everything as low down as possible, keep the center of gravity low, and it should stand up. Okay, that'll do for this one. I've got one in the pipeline that I filmed a while ago now. It must be 4 or 5 days ago. I've got a serious problem with one of my nobly typed dendrobiums, and I've filmed the problem and I've filmed the solution. But what I'm hoping during today or tomorrow, I can take a good look and see if my solution works. Then I can add that onto the end of the video, if you see what I mean. Otherwise, I'll just do it separately. But yeah, so yeah, that is a nice plant. Very nice plant. That was not a cheap plant, but as I said, I used my winnings, so it was like a free plant, effectively. I'd normally begrudge paying that much for an orchid. But I've been after one for a while, and I've never seen this type of dendrobium at this quality. So grab it while it's there. May never turn up again. As I say, most of the others I've seen have been pretty manky looking, stubby little things. Strange bloom habit on this one. Blooms always come out at the base of the plant. Lovely purple. I'll dig a picture out from somewhere and put a pop up. But it's a popular one. Do you know where I first saw this one? And this is a long time ago. I first saw this plant, I think, on Astrid's channel. Or was that the tarantula type? I can't remember. But I saw it on somebody's video quite a long time ago. Loved the colour. And just loved the fact that it just bloomed differently to other dendrobiums, because, as I said, the blooms are always near the base of the plant. Yeah, they don't come out the top. They're down here somewhere, and it just pushes out clusters of very, very intense purple blooms with the yellow bit. As I said, if I can find a pic, you'll have had that by now. Okay, see you again next time. Thanks for dropping by.